Welcome back to the discussion with the Writers' Circle of Durham Region on the changing landscape in publishing. When we left, we were just in the middle of a discussion about vanity press and self-publishing and the distinction between the two, which has evolved over the last 10 years or more. James, what were you
I just wanted to finish with the thought that with the traditional definition of a vanity press is they don't do anything for you. You just give them your manuscript, they publish it for you, and you buy the copies, and you have to buy a lot of copies. And if you're lucky, you don't give them your copyright. Whereas you have traditional publishers on the other end who do all that work to promote your book, and you have the prestige, of course, of being published by a traditional publisher. What's happened is we're in the middle now. We've kind of got a place where there's so much demand, or there's so many writers, for one thing. There's so many different kinds of books being done. You need that kind of middle ground where people can go out and cheaply publish what used to be very expensive to do. We can put a book out on the street that's very well done by an established editor. You make it look very professional. It's a really good book, and you can actually make money. And that's one of the things that I wanted to point out, that you can make money self-publishing. You may even make more money than you would if you went with a traditional publisher, if you do it correctly and you have the right attitude, like Don James said in the previous segment. If you're going to go out there and work that book and go through all the channels that are available, you can make a good buck at it.
Okay, and if we go back to traditional publishing now, and where things are changing because there isn't as much editorial, there's not as much marketing or promotion. So, essentially, writers are doing a lot of that work themselves now anyway. They might even have a little more control going the self-publishing or the smaller press or indie press route. But with traditional publishing and the changes through Amazon and online ordering, what are we seeing out there? You're a writer. You have some books out. You have one coming out in May. What do you hope for in terms of engagement with the community, libraries, bookstores? What kinds of things are better now than they were, and maybe not so good because of the changes? You have to work harder.
I can't speak to the industry a long time ago. I haven't been doing this for a long time. I've only been writing seriously for a few years. But what I understand is that maybe 10 years ago there were a lot more smaller presses and a lot more smaller bookstores. The smaller presses and the smaller bookstores are good for new writers. They're the ones that are more likely to take a chance on someone new. And the small independent bookseller is the one that's going to know every book in their inventory, and when a customer comes in and says, I'm interested in this, they're going to be able to put the right book in that person's hand and make that connection. The Shelley up at Blue Heron Books has been wonderful. I'm planning my book launch there in May, and we've emailed back and forth. I've gone up and visited her, and the loss of that kind of small bookstore, I think, is really unfortunate, because they're the ones that make the connection. Another thing that I've heard, I guess, mourned is the teacher librarian. That's sort of a job that is going by the wayside because of government cutbacks. Schools just don't have that much money, so it'll be someone splitting their time between the classroom and the library. And again, those people that are so good at putting the right book into the right kid's hands, there are fewer of them, and they're less able to do their job now, which is really, really unfortunate.
So that makes your job even harder, because they were helping you promote a book.
I guess,
and
yeah. And there's different ways. There's things for promotion that are available now that weren't before, the internet, but we sort of exhausted that topic. I don't want to go back to it. What I do want to say is that I've sometimes wondered, technology has evolved so that it has really enabled self-publishing. You can get a good professional-looking book. And I wonder if part of the reason that's so tempting to people is that the missing piece, the small presses that used to be there, that were more likely to take a chance on a new writer, they're less available. There are fewer of them. They're able to bring in less writers. And I wonder if, because it's so much harder to get published because of that these days, from what I understand, I wonder if that's why more people are turning to self-publishing as an alternate route.
Well, it's almost an art form, isn't it? Traditional publishing, you don't have as much control over the final product. So I think does it not depend? You tell me what you think. What the genre is, what the form is that you're publishing. I don't know that literary fiction, for example, warrants itself or lends itself that well to a self-published format. James, what do you think of that?
I think fiction is the hardest thing to sell self-published. It's because what you need is if you think about the way people buy fiction, if they're not looking online, and most people tend to go with the same authors over and over again. They'll have maybe 20 authors that they really like if they're avid readers, and picking up a new author is very rare unless somebody recommends them. But there are thousands and thousands of novels published every year across quite a number of, not to mention internationally, that are available in bookstores or available online. So how do you get people to look at your book and give it an opportunity to read it? It's very difficult to do, even if you're a traditionally published writer, let alone someone who's putting your own book out. And the main reason, I think, is there's no distribution system.
Right.
For fiction,
me, the
there isn't
publisher
one.
pays into it when I choose a book as well. You know,
Yes.
when I'm in the young adult section, because that's what I like to read, that's what I like to write. If I'm interested in a book, you know, I'll look at the cover, I'll look at the back, I'll flip through it and read a bit. And one of the things that I'm interested in when I'm looking at the cover, I want to see who put that book out. And if it's a publisher that I really respect, then I'm more likely to read a little bit more in the middle and get a feel for it and decide if it's something I want to read. With self-publishing brands that are less well-known, I wonder if it's harder to get people to take that chance and to say that, you know, I trust this publisher, just because there are so many self-publishers or assisted publishers out there, and it's hard for them to prove themselves, I guess.
There's a matter of credibility too, I think, still, even though we've come a long way, and that whole indie, you know, press world is you know, rising, I think, in credibility. But when it comes to things like reviews, how do you publish a lot of poetry? Do you manage to get those books to be reviewed by, you know, mainstream media?
No, I don't.
No, and why not? Why can't you do that?
Because I work on the time frame I work on. I don't have the luxury of having the books in my possession for a long period of time, or enough copies of them that I can send them out to the reviewers. Right. The other problem is, if I approach it from a very simple perspective. I've got a really good book. I've got a really good writer, and a writer who's willing to go out and be part of the selling process. That's the only thing that I need as a small publisher, because because most of the books are going to be sold in person. That's just the way it is. And if you can get your author, and of course I do the promotion as well, but if they can get out and do lots of readings, but poetry is one of those venues where there are lots of readings all over the place. There aren't as many fiction readings as there used to be, but poetry is really taking off in Canada particularly. There used to be only like 5 readings a month in Toronto. Now there's one every night, sometimes 3 or 4, spread all over the city. So you can sell a lot of books if you're out there on the street, and you have to be on the street selling them.
Okay, so your responsibility then to the author is to publish the book, design the book, help them with layout and editorial, and then they're on their own for marketing. I'd like to pick that up in maybe the next segment and talk about what the traditional house's role is. Maybe include some discussion about agents and distribution of books. Thank you.